All right, let's move on down the list here of the agenda. The second item, class action lawsuits and what you need to know. This is kind of a big one. All right, I'm just going to bring over a Google page that I did a search. I did a search on Reuters News and found the story. Now you can go to Google. I'll tell you what to search. Just search NAR for National Association of Realtors. NAR, Class Action Commissions. 4 words. Search those 4 words. NAR, Class Action Commissions. You do that and you will get pages and pages of stories about this particular class action lawsuit. I'm going to read you just a couple of paragraphs out of the article, and then we're going to talk about what this is, what's going on, and why it matters to you, and what you can do about it. All right. So the title of the article there, you can see U.S. real estate brokerages must face home sellers class action over commissions. It says a federal judge in Chicago ruled, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, ruled that home sellers and that are accusing NAR and a group of real estate brokerages of conspiring to inflate commission rates can move forward as a class action. Now that was kind of a mouthful and I butchered it a little bit. What the judge is basically saying is this group of homeowners that has approached the court and said, we have a claim that we're making, and we're making it against NAR and a group of real estate brokerages. There happens to be 6 real estate brokerages that have been named so far. Probably the most notable name would be RE.MAX as a brokerage has been named. There are 5 other brokerages that have currently been named. All right. It goes on to say that U.S. District Judge Andrea Wood, her decision grants class action status to past home sellers who are seeking more than $13 billion in damages. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. First off, what's a class action lawsuit? There's 2 types of lawsuits. There's an individual lawsuit. We're all familiar with that in some way, where that's one person suing another person, or maybe it's one person suing a company or suing a business. It could be one person suing a real estate agent. It could be one person suing a real estate brokerage. But if that one person says, hey, I'm not the only one that's been damaged, I'm not the only one that's been harmed, there are a lot of people that have been harmed, and that group of people come together and say, we've all been harmed in the exact same way, and collectively we're all going to sue the agent or the brokerage or the business, then that becomes a class action where there's multiple plaintiffs going after the defendants. And in this case, we know that there's the NAR and 6 brokerages. Now here's what's interesting. Currently, and it's actually in this article, but currently there are 7 plaintiffs. But what the judge said, and I'm going to read what the judge's comments were in the order. The judge's order said that membership in the class action should be expected to number into the thousands at a minimum. So in other words, what the judge is saying, yes, there's 7 people that are making this lawsuit today, but by the time it's all said and done, there's going to be thousands at a minimum. All right, so it's getting a little bit more interesting, right? It's definitely got my attention. The crux of the lawsuit, and it's going to vary from state to state in some ways, but the crux of the lawsuit is, you know how it works when a seller makes an agreement with a listing brokerage to list their home, and they come to a commission agreement. And if there is a state that does it differently, then I apologize, but I do think every state does it this way. They make an agreement for a commission, and I'll use Arizona as an example. That's where I live. Maybe a seller says, hey, Dennis, you can list my home. You're with Realty Executives. You know, we negotiate a listing commission. Maybe it's 5%. I'd love for it to be higher, of course. We all would, but maybe it's 5. And in that agreement that I would sign with the seller, I'm going to say to the seller, now I appreciate your trust and confidence in me, you know, to not just list your home and sell your home, but also to find a buyer for your home. But just in case I might be able to do this faster and more efficiently, I'm going to enlist the power of the 40,000 other agents here in the local area who may be working with buyers that I don't know. And I'll be willing to share some of that 5% with them. And I disclose in my listing agreement that I'm going to co-broke that commission. I'm going to co-broke that with a buyer's agent. Maybe I'm going to split it 50-50. Maybe it's not going to be a perfect balance. That's immaterial. That's not what's being disputed here. What's being disputed is that while a seller may have agreed to do that, in hindsight, they're looking back and they're saying, as a seller, they're saying, why did I pay commission that went to the buyer's agent, and that buyer's agent was negotiating against me and trying to get the price down for the buyer and trying to beat up the terms? And, you kind of see where it's going. Seller is saying, I was fine paying my agent, but why am I paying the buyer's agent? Now, our argument as agents and brokers is that they're not paying the buyer's agent. We are paying the buyer's agent through a co-broke arrangement. But a federal judge has looked at this and said, okay, you know what? We need to look more into this, and we need to see how this commission deal is being handled and how this money is flowing throughout a transaction, because ultimately it's the seller's dollars that end up flowing through the listing brokerage and to the buyer's broker as well. So that's the crux of the lawsuit. It's been going on for well over a year, but it finally got into the court to where a judge made a ruling and said, okay, you can go forward now as a class action. So why am I bringing this up today? Because in reality, it could take weeks or months, and it might even take years for this to actually make it into the court system where there's a trial of some sort. I do think it will get there. I have no idea when it will get there, but here's what's going to happen. You can be assured that it's going to be in the news. It's in the news now. You can search Google, as I mentioned already, and see pages and pages of links to different websites, different news sites that will all have their spin on this story, right? So as an agent, you're going to need to be able to answer the question. Let me, in fact, throw this out to you. We already know what the number one question is that consumers ask us as agents. They say, how's the market, right? That's the number one question we get. If you're active in the business, you're asked that question every single day. Let me ask you if you're ready for this question. What if tomorrow you walk into Starbucks and you see a friend of yours, a client of yours, and they come to you and they say, hey, what's going on with that lawsuit about your commission? Are you ready to answer that question, right? Because here's the deal. It's in the news right now. Your client could be reading the exact same story that I have on the screen here, or from any other major news site, because the stories are out there on all the major news sites about this topic. So what I believe is going to happen is this is a lawsuit about who is paying the buyer's broker commission. The lawsuit really at its core is about, is the seller the one paying the buyer's broker commission? That's what the crux of the argument is. But what it's going to morph into over the next weeks and months and maybe a year or more, who knows? But what it's going to morph into is that question that your client asked you at Starbucks. Hey, what's going on with the lawsuit about your commissions? You guys make a lot of money, don't you? Right? That's where it's going. That's what's going to happen. It's going to turn into that kind of a conversation. People that are not 100% up to date on what that lawsuit is about, that's what's going to happen. They're going to come out with questions like that, and you're going to need to know how to answer them. So I've got a resource for you, and let me bring this over. I'm going to just call this what it is. This is NAR to the rescue. All right, we joke a little bit about NAR. We say that they don't do much to help us. Well, whether this is in response to this lawsuit or whether this is something else, they have a resource on this website that I'm going to point you to that I think will help. Because the answer to this question that you're going to be asked about your commission is you're going to have to up your game. You're going to have to convince people even more than you do now about why you're worth what you're being paid. All right. So jot this down. I'll actually put this in the notes of the post in the community where you're watching this video. So either jot this down or look in the notes below or look in the comments below. There's a website that the NAR put out called competition.realtor. That's all you need. If you type that into your browser, competition, spell it out, competition.realtor. That's all you need. Don't add a .com or anything like that. Just competition.realtor. When you do that, you'll come to a site that the NAR put together that has a lot of competitive information state to state about real estate agents and commissions. And there's an article that's going to be linked right off that first page. I love the title to the article. 179 ways agents who are realtors are worth every penny of their compensation. Now, briefly, you know what the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor is, right? A realtor is a member of NAR. By being a member of NAR, we agree to abide by the Code of Ethics, and we have an organization like the National Association of Realtors on our side, okay? If you're not a member of NAR and you're not paying annual dues to the NAR, generally there's things you're not going to be able to do. You may not be able to be a member of your MLS. Your broker may not hire you because you're kind of out there on your own, not really abiding by Code of Ethics, and you're saying, I'm not really following anybody. I'm not responsible to report to anyone, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I think everyone should be a realtor, but there are people who are not. In your MLS, you'll see a non-member listing, or on your contract, you may have a non-member or not a member of an association. So there may be state to state some differences there, but not everyone is a realtor. But in here, NAR is putting out an article that says 179 ways agents who are realtors are worth every penny of their compensation. You can scroll down this article, and there are 179 things that they've listed, everything from pre-listing activities to a listing appointment presentation to, if I keep going, contracts, skills regarding contracts, inspections. I noticed actually when I was looking at this today, inspections, and then the next category is home inspections. And I look closer, and this section here is actually more about lending than it is inspections. So they probably meant to title that something with regards to lending. And then there's home inspections, appraisal, processing for closing, follow-up after. And yep, it goes all the way up to 179 things. Here's why I bring this up. When people are asking you about your commission and asking you basically to justify your commission, justify what you make, I think you can go to this site, competition.realtor, and I think you can find, out of 179 things, I think you can find 5 that you can hang your hat on and say, geez, there's a lot of things that I do, but let me tell you about 5 things that I do that honestly most consumer sellers would not really be able to do on their own, wouldn't know what to do, and it could cost them thousands of dollars. I think you can find those things in here, and I would really challenge you to check out that website. All right, check out competition.realtor and look for that article. All right, we're going to move on.